Okay, so this is, again, my name is Andy Graham, or Andrew C. Graham, and this is not really with a website. I guess it's a little bit with kosher and halal restaurants.com. We accomplish security by making noise and saying, these are look at the apparatus that we have. So congratulations, or I shouldn't say we, some people who knew about things more than me. See, I made that error that I told you I made a mistake, but then I corrected it. Let me tell you about something else. This is related to the Torah commentary. There's more on the positive. So I had this Swiss Army knife. My father gave me this Swiss Army knife, and I knew that this tiny little portion was breaking off the Swiss Army. This is one of the things that I requested from my father to purchase again for me as a small Swiss Army knife, because he gave me this Swiss Army knife a long time ago. When I first arrived here, I requested him to buy one for me. I was like, no, you have to buy me the Swiss Army apparatus because it's important to me. He did not. For whatever reason, he thought, you're being ridiculous. You're being sentimental. I was like, well, I don't think you realize whom I am, a portion of my soul after various occurrences. I'm a little bit sentimental about some things. This portion of the Swiss Army, not the watch, but it was started breaking off. It finally broke off just now. So this is going to be saved in a special place, perhaps in my siddur. I have to use tape on my siddur. This will be contained in my siddur. These kinds of little things is what makes me a little bit weird. Okay, it's called nuances or peculiarities or eccentricism or whatever. You see. So this is a siddur. Parshat Chukas is what the Parshat we are in. It uses the word erred. So Moshe erred. It didn't say Moshe sinned. It wasn't Moshe's sin. So these are the differentiation, the nuances between kosher and halal, and the differences between some things. I don't know much about either religion in comparison to the real big studied people, right? The studied ones on the side of a different religion, both Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, they probably know more than me. But this is my explanation, okay? So this is my Torah as I've learned it, you see. And one could say it's large. It's long. It's a scroll. It's supposed to be a scroll, you know. So everybody didn't read it in the right way. Anyways, it's in a book now, you know. Till you break out one of the scroll with the smudged paper and all that stuff that it talks about in some of the Siddurs and the prayer books, then there's always going to be something. So Moshe and Aaron erred. It is different from sin. It says on page 103 of the version of the Siddur that I have on page 103, erred. Now, the previous edition, I think it said sinned, and it also said wanton sinners or something like that. That prayer book, I don't know where it was. You know, I left it somewhere. I had to let it go. It contained a lot of occurrences, painful things, based on almost close to almost nothingness, you know. So this is a different procedure. This is an Ashkenaz prayer, and the word "er" is on page 103 in the Shakrit in the morning prayer. The word "er" is also in Parshat Chukas. So it's in chapter 19, still in chapter 20. So there's a differentiation between. This is where I'm not for sure about what the religions say about the word erred. They may still use the word sin or violation or prohibition. Some people say prohibition. Now there's a correlation between prohibition and what? Something that's allowable and encouraged, believe it or not, according to the keeping of the Shabbos, and that's called a kadushka, kadushin or kadush. It's where the portion of the wisdom is shared through different ways. And this a portion of that is kosher wine. So if you're a long time ago, if you were staying in either Christian-dominated countries or Muslim-dominated countries, discovering or having some sort of wine, let alone kosher wine, oh, what a task that would have been. Because how would they know? Well, we know where the Jews are. Look at where. All you have to do is to find out where the grapevines are. So imagine some dude who was tasked back in the day, no matter Christian or if their job was to slaughter the Jews or whatever, however they thought about things because they just didn't know any better a long time ago. how would you find them? You'd have to look for where grapevines are. Duh. And then you would basically, you'd talk to that person and say, hey, look, I'll pay you triple what they're paying you to tell me who is buying that kosher wine, or quadruple. What a perplexing scenario for an owner of a grapevine, or an apple orchard. He said, well, what am I supposed to do now? They figured out how to find all the Jews that I was selling to, because they're paying me. What they don't know is that these guys are paying me 15 times the amount that the offer that they're paying me. So what am I gonna do? So then I talk to these rabbis and say, well, which one of them is like, whatever. They're the same as you, but they're not you, or something. And the grapevine owner says, I'll tell you who. I can make some money from this, huh? Some dinero, or maybe some extra dough, because do I want these guys talking to me about my grapevine? I'm just a seller of grapes, and it's kosher, and they make it kosher. I'm just the grapevine people, and I have a section of it that's kosherized for them, that I sell to them, but I also sell to other people too. I just happen to own this grapevine, these grapevines, you see, and this could be long ago, or it could be in the modern day, right? And so these people, their job was to discover who this and that or the other. They say, you know what? I had these people come talk to me, and you know what they said to me? They said that they're going to eliminate the entire grapevine if I don't work with them. What am I supposed to do? And the rabbis, they sit back and say, yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. If I tell you the ones that are, whoever may have just been Johnny-come-latelys or whatever, who also merit to study with us, I might be the originator of their harm. What's going to happen to me? So these are perplexing. These are paradoxes, right? If I don't tell you, then all of my students become lower in level. It's called da'at. Because you're our only source for kosher wine right now. It's perplexing. So what do you do? What would a smart rabbi do? This is a portion perhaps of Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim, I think, is in this week's Torah portion, somewhere in here, right? So the rabbi is saying, well, maybe we can find somebody to be like a decoy or whatever for the rest of the team. And you kind of say, hey, look, you were one of us, but, it's a little bit complicated because it's complicated with you. So how about this? We're going to if you're smart enough, you'll figure it out after a while that you kind of like, you're going to be the guy that they're not going to officially slaughter with their swords and stuff, but they might, and a little of the responsibility falls on me, I guess. It might be a sin for me, but it might be just an error. But is it an intentional error with you guys? Oh, that would be a sin. Back in the day in Parshat Chukas, and also in the Siddur on page 103, they had more pure Torah. So it says Moshe erred. It wasn't a sin. It was the expectation that the Chadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, the creator of the universe, had placed upon both Moshe and Aaron at the time, because they were the two. They were origination. They were the only two that they had. They had to teach everybody, all the 600,000 Jews and their families and everything like that. You see, so they had a weighty responsibility. In the modern age, it's a little bit different. So if they try to use the same tactics and strategies that they did all those years ago, it's kind of like, hold on here. Now let me get this story straight here. You're telling me you had no influence or knowledge or anything of any things that happened at all? I find that a little bit difficult to believe or to whatever. This is where negotiations of things, you see? So, in other words, if you're the grapevine owner, you can say, well, I might know another grapevine owner, but it cost me double to get that. So, the job for this one, because he might put himself in harm's way, this is what they could have taken a step back and realized some of these things. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I actually do know another grapevine, but it's in another country. So, it's going to cost double or triple to import that kosher wine. You won't be buying from me per se, but at least I can give you like a homie hookup with that. You'll know what I mean? Because I've known you guys for a long time and we've been working together and things like that. So I tell you what, because these guys found this grapevine owner, but they don't know about the other grapevines, and so They're gonna be, this, that, and the other with this particular grapevine, but this other one, I don't want this new guy, because then I would also be responsible, because you just told me what you might do. You know what I mean? So you got joint and severable. It's called joint and severable liability going on, and also gross negligence with a couple of things. You know what I mean? So you say, hey, you know what? Hey, look, this other grapevine owner, but if I tell the other grapevine owner, he's gonna get suspicious. It's like, well, I know you guys have had these customers for so long. What happened? So this other grapevine owner, he kind of knows like right away what happened. You know what I mean? So that's called a perplexing or a paradox. Not really a paradox. That becomes perplexing. So there's the differentiation between perplexing and paradoxes. You'll see what I mean? So I find it fascinating that these things randomly happen along the way, and then all of a sudden something that, you know what I mean? So these are the conundrums that exist in the world. Um, you know, it's called the conundrums of the world. I don't know, something may have been taken out of the Siddur. I don't know, there were some spoons that were stolen from me that was from an Air Force base in Thailand with my grandfather Manny's. And I had the Star of David, it was in the Siddur. I don't know if it's no longer there. So they felt like they could get away with all kinds of things. It's not that big of a deal. I bought it online, but it may have been just gone. But something else was more important to me than that. Anyways, I'm like I mentioned before, I may be the best prosecutor, the ideal job for the prosecution. Anyways, this is in Parshat Chukas, or Parshat Chukas. There's no food and water. Oh yeah, you know. So, anyways, these are the things that we were talking about here. Oh yeah, this is the Book of War. It's actually in chapter 21 and 22. This is another like a proof text about the Book of War. You see. So it talks about the song in the Book of Wars of Hashem. So, in other words, the Protestants and the Catholics and the Muslims, they didn't have a book about the War of Hashem. That's that song that they sung about in like 2010. Read about this thing in the ancient Book of War, you know. So the wars of that era recorded in a book of this name. This is what Ramban sends from the north of Spain. Over the years, it had become lost, the lost chapters. That's what they say. So I think the Star of David used to be in this book. I actually kept it in here. It's not that big. I bought it on Amazon online. I wore it as a necklace for a long time. It might be in here. It's just a piece of metal. It was connected to me. It's not that big of a deal. I could buy another one and wear it for a while, but it's connected to things that from a long time ago. Some mountain. I could go back to that mountain and run it again and things like that. But it wouldn't be quite the same. It would be a little bit different. But it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, I lost this Star David necklace. I used to wear it. My mother back in the day had a picture when they were in California. She's Jewish, and she had a picture wearing the Star of David. Same. It's not the same necklace. I saw that picture, and I thought it was. I liked that picture, and so she used to wear this little Star of David. I thought that was very precious. This is when he was. This is before he was going. He decided to go to seminary in Oral Roberts University in Oklahoma. This is before that. Anyways. That's where I got the idea, so whatever. So this is the book of that read about these things is the book of war. The gift at the sea of reeds and the rivers of Anon. Sechol and the battles. You'll see the Midrashim, which interpret as a listing of the miracles performed for Israel. The outpouring of the rivers. So, in other words, he leaned against it, crushing those waiting in ambush. Oh, what happened when they leaned? Did it fall over when they leaned too much? Did you try to sit in that chair and it fell apart because it was designed that way? Or did you lean against it and it fell over? But in other words, be careful who you lean upon, because in the modern age, it becomes perplexing. What does this say here? This is how I normally read the Torah. I kind of just browse it. Water from the well. Oh, why don't you? And so the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the creator of the universe, why don't you go get? You could have the water came from the well this time, huh? Okay, that's great. The rivers of blood. All right, Israel's saying to express its own gratitude. They say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, who married the armies of Pharaoh at the Sea of Reeds. Oh, me. The Midrashim. The Midrash, not Midrashim, if you say Midrashim, it means plural and it's ongoing. This is a Midrash. Tanchuma comments that Moshe's name is not mentioned in this song, since he was punished on the account of the well, of the water from the well. In other words, the righteous woman gave somebody a camel. They said, I have water for your camels. Wow. You did not like that one? I said, no, I did not like that one. I'm sorry, punish me. No, I know you said that one was good for me. I know what's good for me in my meager opinion. You're trying to tell me what to do. You can have the well water drinkers. Send them that way. The love giver of the staff to the valley, allusion to Moshe's. To the valley, an allusion to Moshe's death while Israel was encamped in the valley, Ibn Ezra. Yeah, these guys around here, they took a couple of things from, I had this yarmulke with the Star of David, a bunch of, just little things. They left most of the things that are important to business, but that's what they did, all kinds of things just. So it was complicated for the people whose job was to serve and protect, so to speak, because, if some people, whoever they are, if they want to do something to a person, an individual, or a group of people, believe me, they can accomplish the task. And so sometimes they say, well, it's also true in the opposite. You see what I mean? So that's that. The poets. Oh, the alive poets society, the dead poets society, Captain McCaptain. What is this? Captain McCaptain, the Sichon invasion sired Balaam and Beor to course. Oh no, it was a good blessing this time. Page 122 and 136 of book 19 and book 20. Because Rabbi Yossi was in there, but they did not call him Yossi. They call him Yossi, not Rabbi Yossi. There's a differentiation between the Yossis as far as one who has not yet reached that level of Rabbi per the Zohar. The idol, maybe Rabbi Yossi abandoned his younger Yossi. He abandoned his younger self, perhaps, which abandoned its children in their time of distress. Ramban. All these things, this is written about in the Book of War. They say, well, you are not yet me. Maybe you are. Maybe you already became me. But if they're after you, technically, but if they're after you, they're also after me. So I want to survive. Good luck. Things like that. And so maybe you'll survive. Oh, maybe you'll do better than me. Well, that is the point of the Torah. The Torah teaches that the next generation should do better than the previous generation. You see? Oh, Og Mandino. Og does battle, the great Og. Akiva had conundrums with Og, huh? Oh, 87 verses in the Sidra, Baruch Hashem. God's right hand, okay. Moshe Feinstein, David Feinstein, okay, all right. 1187. So now we turn to the Haftarah. Parshat 1:1-7. Whoa. What is it talking about over here? Oh, it's talking about the Amalekites. This time the Amalekites are Ammon in this Parshat and made war with Israel. And who was Ammon? The children of Ammon. That when the children of Ammon came, this perhaps is talking about entities, ancient entities, in some people's opinions. And in this book's opinion, of course, yeah. The king of Edom, oh, what a formidable foe. Edom and Ammon, oh, complicated, perplexing. How are they going to survive against that kind of an adversary? This is where the Sea of Reeds come into play. Moshe had to take the staff and split the Sea of Reeds so they could survive. Who mired the armies of Pharaoh at the Sea of Reeds? Oh, me. Subdued. They did not slaughter them. They only subdued them before. But it was before the children of Israel, Baruch Hashem. Well, the entities, they always exist. So this is the conundrum of slaughtering things because it's perhaps beyond, it's very lofty things. This book is talking about very lofty things that are mystical. Some could say that it's written in comic books, other people say mystical, depending on, the people that you're, the audience, I guess, It does not have that much of an explanation for Parshat Chukas. Divine intervention. So miracles in other portions of the Torah, it says miracles are an indication of, in other portions, in other parshats, it says miracles are an indication of an error. Some say a sin, depending on the scenario. Some say an error, depending on the scenario. And some say a sin, depending on the scenario, or a mistake, intentional or unintentional, depending on the scenario, you see. But either way, if divine intervention or a miracle, to say it differently, occurs or is required, so to speak, just for the sake of survival for the future or the past, then there is what's called a design improvement. So the relationship between one could say the partnership, or if you look at the Sistine Chapel with those little fingers, they're saying, oh, these things have been thought about and discussed for centuries and for generations after generation. The interplay between the Kadosh Baruch Hu and the creator of the universe and his formation, humans that dwell on various planets and things like that, and then of course entities and things, and souls, and things of that sort. Lots of things written about these things throughout the centuries and throughout the generations, and even in the modern day. Despite his humble and ignorant beginnings, are comprehensible to the human intellect. Another connection between the Sidra and the Haftarah is the underscoring of the inscrutability of it says God's way. It doesn't say Hashem's way or the Kadosh Baruch Hu or anything. It says of God's way. So it's probably to denote, my opinion is to denote God's way, and with apostrophe S. So they're not using the name for this opinion. They're using a lesser name for this opinion because it's not meant to be taken all that seriously. What is this? This is neither his decrees are exemplified by the red cow or his workings of history, such as Jephthah's elevation of chiefdom, despite his humble and ignorant beginnings, are comprehensible to the human intellect. So it's like this is probably, my guess is, it doesn't specifically say that, my guess is the source of this commentary of the Haftarah of Chukas is derived in Rabbi Hillel, Hillel, Rabbi Hillel, since the house of Shammai and house of Hillel, you see. So it, because humble and ignoble beginnings is up to perception. So this is something where they're not using the name to describe something. This is a commentator's addition and their comments. It's not a source from a great commentator from back in the day. This is a comment based upon the compilation of this book, you see, and their meager opinion. It doesn't even say who says this. Probably whoever put the Stone Edition together, who compiled these things, you see. And so because there's a little bit of what's called Loshon. It's not Loshon Hora. There's a differentiation between Loshon, not Loshon like suntan lotion or fancy whatever to keep you, nice and fresh or whatever. Loshon is in words. This is not Loshon Hora. Hora goes beyond that. But this is a little bit of Loshon, but it's based on perception. So it could be an elevation. It depends. This is where perception comes into play. Is it actualized or is it perception? So that's why the result of something matters. If result come into something detriment or something awful for something that happened, then it's considered to be Loshon. But if in the end or whatever the beginning, depending on the time scale, it turns into something elevation, depending on the outcome, then we don't know. We don't know what this little tiny section here, part of Parshat Chukas Haftarah, whether it's Loshon or it's elevation of the soul or the spirit or whoever's reading this, right? Because it's not his workings of history, such as Jephthah's elevation. It says elevation to chiefdom. So his position in the world was elevated, but there was a little bit of Loshon attached to that, because it says here, humble and ignoble beginnings are comprehensible to the human intellect. So perhaps it is talking about my grandfather Manny, his middle name being Augusto. Elevated to chiefdom, chief master sergeant in the world. And I have this other grandfather, Hugh, not to forget him, but it wasn't as important as the role, no offense to him, being the chief of those Canadian Mounties up in Sault Ste. Marie. He was a chief back in the day when that was like a big deal. It's still a little bit of a big deal, but not as much, So, anyways, of the Canadian, I don't think he was an actual Mountie, but he was like he knew the Mounties and things like that. Anyways, that wasn't up in Canada. So, anyways, thanks for listening, and Baruch Hashem.